name's Kirsteen Macleod, and I am the co-founder of the Compost Depot, which is an organisation that was developed by volunteers to help people manage compost, and we've set up a couple of community compost sites. I guess like I'd always, grown up watching like David Attenborough documentaries and, David Suzuki, and I had sort of witnessed like, pollution and, blue-green algae eutrophication, and I'd seen what happens in the environment. Humans are always trying to fight nature or control nature. You have to understand it and you have to work with it. And, we're all so reliant on everything that happens in the environment. So when I finished high school, all I really wanted to do was party with my friends. I think my parents weren't too happy, but at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I did know is that I wanted to travel and I wanted to explore and I wanted to have fun. So after I finished high school, I worked in retail, I worked in hospitality, I partied very heavily with my friends, had a great time. I moved out of home. I saved up lots of money, went traveling for a whole year by myself. And I think, while I was traveling, that sort of gave me a lot of time where I was by myself, where I could sort of think about what's important, what I enjoy doing, what makes me happy, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, that sort of thing. So yeah, having, I guess, that sort of gap year, I guess, that was really important to me. So that was sort of why I took, time off after school. So it's not a direct path. I studied environmental management at TAFE when I was about early 20s. And then I moved to Melbourne, ended up doing an undergraduate degree in chemistry and biochemistry. At the time, I was told that there was always a need for chemists, that there would be heaps of jobs. But then when I graduated, that was the global financial crisis and there were absolutely zero jobs for graduates. And so the only work that I could get was in a chemistry lab, doing routine analysis on, food and drink samples, anything with a nutritional panel at the back. My second job or weekend job, I was earning significantly more per hour than I was at my job that supposedly needed a degree for. So that was pretty disheartening. Then I did a TAFE course on landscape design, because I've always liked plants and gardening. And I worked in a nursery, then worked in intellectual property for a little while. Then I decided to do a master's degree because I really wanted to get into contaminated site management. Then after graduating, they advertise graduate roles, but they want someone that's got 3 years experience. Yeah, I just thought, well, it's better to do something rather than nothing. So I started doing a lot of volunteer work, and through the volunteer work, that's where I met other volunteers who were interested in trying to tackle food waste and composting. So we started a community compost sort of pilot project. And, you know, everything sort of grew from there. Heaps. Okay, so when I first started studying, majority of the senior sort of positions were male dominated. And I think that is still an issue for a lot of occupations. There's lots of women that are, you know, graduating from PhDs, from master's degrees, from undergrad courses in, you know, STEM subjects. There's actually more women, you know, graduating now than there are, you know, men in those courses. But I guess you're still not quite seeing, you know, gender parity when it comes to the senior management and, you know, the board of directors. I think a lot of businesses and organisations are onto this, and they are trying to make a difference. But I still think we've got a long way to go. I think the conversation is really starting to sort of change. So yeah, I'm hopeful that things will get better in the future. I'm not sure if it's going to happen in my lifetime, but, you know, maybe for the next generation, men and women will be, you know, given equal amounts of respect, equal pay, and, you know, if you do take time out of your career to raise children, you're not going to be penalised for it. For a lot of my friends, it's been very hard for them to get back into the workforce after having children, because they might not want to work full time, and a lot of positions don't offer, you know, flexible working hours. So there's still lots and lots of barriers. And, you know, there's also barriers for men who want to be the primary caregiver. It's not as accepted as it should be. I think I've always liked, I guess, problem solving. I like, you know, seeing a problem and then finding like a creative solution for it, or figuring out why it's not working or why it's working. That's always interested me. I think, you know, nature and, you know, plants and animals and that sort of biological kind of environmental sort of science subjects have always been really fascinating. I find it really amazing how, you know, plants that don't have a brain can actually take something like sunlight and turn it into energy. Like, that's just, you know, it always makes me just sit back and reflect, like, wow, you know, this is pretty amazing. I think a lot of people have taken the environment for granted and don't realise how dependent we are on, you know, having access to clean air and fresh water. That really worries me. So I think because I'm aware of it, because I'm worried about that sort of thing happening, that sort of keeps me motivated and keeps me, you know, wanting to find solutions for, you know, some of the really big environmental kind of problems that we're having. One of the things that I love doing is, and that brings me the most amount of joy, is helping people. I really enjoy working with other people and, you know, working as a team. I find that I'm always much better if I have, you know, at least one person to sort of bounce ideas off, and, you know, collaborate with. So, yeah, my parents were not thrilled when I didn't want to go to university when I was 17. I think everyone's pathway is different. So, yeah, like I think my parents definitely wanted me to study more, but I just wasn't ready when I was a teenager. I think you've really got to be passionate about it. You've got to want to be there. There's no point in just studying something because your parents told you to, or you're not going to be as motivated to do the work. Just because you're good at something, like, doesn't mean that that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. I had family friends that I guess I could talk to, and they were like, you don't have to go to university to be successful. I would definitely say that to anyone. Like, if you know what you want to do, just go ahead and do it. You don't need a university degree. A lot of my friends don't have a university degree and they started their own business when they were younger, and they're super successful, and they might have started a university degree but dropped out. And I've got friends that are computer programmers, software designers, people that write their own apps, and they're all university dropouts. Take the time to figure out what's important to you. And if you don't know what you want to do when you're a teenager, don't freak out. There's lots of people who are in that position. And it's not a big deal if you take a bit longer to figure it out. In the end, yeah, being happy is more important than anything else. I think doing something that you're passionate about and that you really, really love, when you find that thing that you really, really love and that gets you excited, then work doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like such a burden. When you're doing something that you really, really love, it's kind of hard to find time for other things because you just enjoy doing it so much. You just want to work every day. Knowing what you're good at and what you're passionate about is so important, because, like, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're not happy, there's just no point. Money isn't going to solve that, because if you don't have that work-life balance and you're not really passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't matter how much money someone throws at you, you're still not going to be happy. You're going to be miserable. I think for me, having a routine, and I guess knowing what's going to happen next, having like predictable sorts of steps, I think that was really helpful. So, like, if you know what assignment is coming up next, or when the next exam is, or when you have to get something done by, like, having deadlines and knowing what you're currently working on, and how that like relates to the direction that you want to go. I think that really helped me stay motivated. There's definitely, some subjects that were compulsory when I was studying that I was like, yeah, I'm never going to use this. And I haven't used stuff, but that's just, I guess, part of the deal. Like, when you're studying, unless you are studying something where you can pick all of your subjects and just do things that you want to do, unfortunately, there are going to be times where you have to do something that you're like, I'm never going to use this. This is like a total waste of my time. And I think that's just part of the deal of studying, and you just have to sort of grin and bear it. And yeah, I think the other thing is when you're studying, you're so busy, you've always got so much work to do, and you're so busy sort of, I guess for me, juggling like part-time work, casual work, and, you know, living out of home and studying, that I didn't really have, I guess, too much extra time to kind of procrastinate. I was so busy that if I didn't get it done, then, you know, I wouldn't be able to submit things on time. So I think that keeps you motivated. Having deadlines definitely keeps me motivated. I think finding out what works for you and having everything in balance, I guess. Having routines definitely helps. So, you know, exercising definitely helps. Having predictability, knowing what to expect next. And yeah, you get better at all of this stuff with more experience. The more times you do anything, the better at it you get. I mean, it was so weird. Like, for example, when I was studying, they didn't have women's bathrooms on every single floor of the building. And never really understood why. You know, they had men's toilets on every single level of the building, but they didn't have women's toilets. And it was an old building, and the reason why is because, you know, previously it had only been a building where men would study. And although women had been allowed to study there for a very long period of time, things like putting in extra toilets for women on every floor of a building, I don't know, I guess they just didn't think that that was important. I don't know. You feel like you don't have anyone to chat to, or you don't have any sort of anything in common with the people that you're working with. That can be really, really uncomfortable. So if you're the only woman in a workplace, or, you know, you're the only person that speaks English, for example, yeah, that can be like quite a hostile workplace. It can be quite lonely and can be quite challenging. But yeah, everyone's going to have a different experience, I guess. Having, you know, other women, more women in the workplace, you know, things like having women's toilets and, you know, having other women to chat to if you feel more comfortable, you know, having lunch with other women, that's really important. Yeah, there's lots of barriers, definitely. Yeah, I've definitely encountered lots of challenges. I remember when I was doing honours at Monash, one of the most frustrating things for me was this lab that we were working in. You know, none of the drawers or shelves were correctly labelled. So a drawer might say, you know, plugs or stoppers, but then you open the drawer and there'll be glassware in it instead of plugs or stoppers. Yeah, so I got really frustrated because I couldn't find anything, and it made it really hard to, you know, do the work, because you need to collect all these bits and pieces to run an experiment. But then if you can't find what you're looking for, you know, everything just takes longer, and it can be really, really frustrating. Yeah, I definitely cracked it, and was given the nickname of Cyclone Kirsteen, because I came in and apparently changed everything and reorganized things and relabeled things so that everyone in the lab could benefit from it. I don't really know whether Cyclone Kirsteen is like a negative nickname or a positive one. If someone else, if like a male colleague had expressed frustration with not being able to find the things that they needed, I don't really know that they would have been given a nickname. It was definitely a blokes club. Workplace culture has changed a lot since then. I try and tell myself, you know, if it doesn't kill you, it can only make you stronger. At the time, it can be really, really hard. And it's okay to be frustrated, because sometimes when you're really frustrated by something, that actually leads you to finding a solution or solving the problem, or changing things. So I guess try and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That can be like a really good motivator for you to try and make the changes or advocate for change. So yeah, even if you're put in a situation where you feel like, you know, there's nothing you can do that will make it better, it might be the people that follow after you that benefit. Being awarded like a large grant from the state government through the Pygmy project, that's definitely a highlight, because, you know, people had to vote on different project ideas, and, you know, enough people voted for the project that I was working on. So it means that there's, you know, people out there that share my vision, who, you know, want to see something done. There's no way that I could convince my sort of high school self that I would end up with a master's degree. If you don't love what you're doing, don't do it. Don't feel so guilty about like trying to keep your parents happy, because, you know, in the end, your happiness is actually more important than their happiness. Try and focus on the big picture. And yeah, take time out for yourself. Have faith in yourself and your own ideas.